So, ladies and gentlemen, great pleasure, of course, to open our panel discussion with the ministers. First of all, I would like to welcome our participants. First of all, Minister of Interior of Austria, Gerhard Karner. Welcome, Mr. Minister. On the right side, you see Mazin, Abdellah, Hilal al-Farrayeh, the Minister of Interior of Jordan. Welcome,
Thank you.
Minister.
Thank you. Thank you.
This side, you see Johan Forssell, the Minister of Migration from Sweden. Welcome, Mr. Minister.
Thank you. Thank you.
And of course, the Assistant Minister for Foreign Affairs, for Multilateral Affairs and International Security, Amr El-Sherbini, is here from Egypt. So, ladies and gentlemen, you see a high-ranking panel discussing with us what has happened, what is the assessment over the last year. And I would like, of course, to start with Austria. Minister Karner, you have been also in the election campaign last year. Austria, of course, had general elections in the last year, and Minister Karner stayed in the office as a Minister of Interior. And this was a very relevant issue discussed during election campaign. He announced, of course, decreasing numbers of irregular arrivals in Austria, decreasing numbers of asylum seekers. He managed also to bring back people also in interesting destinations like Syria and Afghanistan. So a lot has happened during this year. Minister, what is your assessment about the last year? Has anything changed in the agenda of Austria? And what do you think are the main challenges for this year?
Lieber Michael, before I give you an answer to the question, let me say to all of you a very warm welcome here in Austria. The meeting hall is really almost completely full, never before. Congrats to you, lieber Michael. Thank you for doing the great work as a Director General from ICMPD, and it's good to have ICMPD back in town. Very warm welcome to you, all of you. Thank you for being here. And let me also best wishes to Susanne. It's great that you will do this job from starting at January the next year. I'm sure you will also do a good job. It's an important job. You know this because we were a colleague in the government in Austria, and I'm sure that it will also work great, and I'm sure that next year, the Vienna Migration Conference, the meeting hall will also be full, and all the best for you. Thank you for this. I also want to thank for the topic of this panel and your first question on changing priorities, especially in Austria, in Europe. Because of our geographic position and the high pressure on secondary migration, Austria always have to adapt our measures and policies to new situations, as you mentioned before, and we have to be real flexible. And good news in this topic are really rare. But since last year, the number of illegal migrants and asylum applications have gone down, as also the Commissioner mentioned. And let me try to explain why. And I have two examples for this. First, our investment in protecting the EU external borders. I think we made step forwards. I visited the border, Bulgaria to Turkey this year, and I visited this border also 3 years before, and it changed. So the Commission, a lot of European countries did at the external border really a good job in this time. But also we set national measures, like we stopped in Austria the family reunification. It was a hard measure, but this was a necessary measure. We did in this new government this year. We managed to get the situation under control, but it's not a reason to rest. We have to continue our hard work to bring illegal migration down to zero. That's our aim. And therefore, our number one priority currently is forced and voluntary returns, especially to Syria and Afghanistan, as we discussed together also with my Swedish colleague, we had a bilateral meeting yesterday where also we discussed this topic. It's a very important topic, I think, all over Europe. And after the regime change in Syria, it was very important for us to establish contacts with the new Syrian government. This is why I traveled to Syria, to Damascus, together with the former German Minister of Interior, Nancy Faeser, in April. And I would like to thank in this regard also the government of Jordan, especially to my colleague Mazin, for the support and the close exchange in this topic. It was the first official visit of an Austrian government member to Syria in 15 years. The first exchange with the Syrian government was a successful first contact at political level. And these contacts made the first few forced returns to Syria possible. All three men are convicted criminals, and it was very important to show that we are serious on returns when people commit crimes in Austria, in our country, in Europe. But we have also set up a voluntary return program, and so far in this year, over 650 Syrians have returned voluntarily. And at the moment, we also work, as you mentioned, on a technical level on a return cooperation with Afghanistan. And very currently, I can report that this morning, so very currently, for the first time after 4 years, Austria returned a convicted criminal, Afghan, to Kabul, to Afghanistan this morning. This is a hard work, but a necessary work we do, and we are also in close contact with other countries in Europe to do this also. At this point, I want to thank the Commission for presenting a proposal for a new European return regulation, and I hope we can quickly finish negotiations to make return procedures more efficient. And I know also, belong of the pact, most time the last meters are the hardest one, but I think we have to reach this pact. And I hope also that we have the basis with this, with the basis for return hubs in third countries. And you're maybe also aware that Austria is one of the countries that supports the Danish and Italian initiative to discuss the new interpretation of the European Convention on Human Rights. I'm convinced that we need to have this debate. It's not easy, but it's again necessary. Because sometimes it seems the convention has, let me say, only in some cases, protected criminal migrants more than citizens of the host countries. And that's not good for the acceptance of our systems. And we need functional systems. And our second priority is, as I mentioned, the implementation of the Asylum and Migration Pact. It was a long discussion we had all over Europe for about more than 10 years. You know this. Last year we agreed for the new pact. Now we have to finish it. It's hard, but it's necessary. And at the same time, we have to work on further measures. So I'm therefore convinced that we need to have the legal possibility for asylum procedures in third countries. We call them innovative solutions we discuss also on European level. And the Commission and many other countries, like Sweden, support this already. And this is our third priority, a good cooperation with partner countries as the basis for all other measures. For example, as I just mentioned, I visited Jordan in March this year. I was very grateful for your hospitality, Mazin, and thank you once again for this. And I also had the opportunity to visit a Syrian refugee camp, Satari, which provides what the refugees need the most. You give them safety and secure, and that's why it's bring you in front that you are doing really a great job for those refugees, and also help our countries and Europe for what doing in Zaatari and other refugee camps for a lot of Syrians. This makes it easier to support each other when we understand each other, what each other have to do. And it makes to support each other in our aim for a sustainable and future fit migration system. That's what we all want, that's what we all need in Europe and all over the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Karner, for these insights. I would now like to ask our Minister Farrayeh about situation in Jordan. I think we all have a picture in mind that Jordan is one of the stable countries in the Middle East. Nevertheless, of course, there is a huge number of refugees in your country you are hosting, and you have to manage this. And I think especially now, after the fall of the Assad regime, return to Syria is one of the big issues, but also other issues. So maybe, Mr. Minister, you can give us a short wrap-up. What is ongoing in Jordan? What are your priorities for this year? Please.
Thank you very much. Allow me first to thank the ICMPD for organizing such a very important conference at this point of time. And I would like also to thank the Austrian government for providing the space for this conference to happen. Jordan is a small country with 7.5 million citizens, approximately. And we in Jordan used to describe our country as an oasis of peace, security, and stability in a very troublesome region. And this makes us attractive to refugees, to migrants who are looking for work, to refugees who are looking for safety for themselves and their families. When you are in a proximity to conflict zones, to countries of disagreements, you have your share of burden that is naturally more than other countries can tolerate or share. In Jordan, we host around 3.5 million refugees from 43 countries, but mainly from Palestine, from Syria, from Yemen, from Iraq, from Sudan, and purposely or not purposely, and let me think that's unpurposely, we become a buffer zone between countries of origin for refugees and countries of destination. In the Syrian crisis since 2011, we have received 1.4 million Syrians in our soil. Out of this number, less than 100,000 are living in camps. The rest are enjoying a normal life in our cities, villages, and towns. We provide a proper health care. We provide free education. We provide an access to the labor market beside the security that they need. This great effort put pressure on all sectors in Jordan. It put pressure in our healthcare center. Last year, only 800,000 Syrians have visited our healthcare centers. Water resources, as you may all know, Jordan have a scarcity of water. The per capita share of water in Jordan is 61 square meter per person, but the global average is 500 square meter. And those number of refugees have put even more pressure on our water resources. The labor market, in addition to the refugees, we have more than 300,000 Egyptians working in Jordan. Because of security, stability, proper basic services, and the high value of our currency. People from the region are more than happy to come and work in our country. That's put pressure also on our unemployment. And I was talking to Minister Karner this morning about this. The unemployment rate in Jordan is around 22%. Between female, it's more than 30%. That can be a reason and a cause for disruption, a cause of social unrest, social unhappiness with this number of refugees in our soil. Syrian borders are only, we share with Syria 378 kilometers, secured only by Jordan. The resources that we have deployed at the borders with Syria is immense. Comparing with our economy, it's very difficult for any country to tolerate such effort for now 14 years. In addition to that, drugs, weapons are coming from Syria in huge numbers. This year, 2025, so far, we have seized 8 million pills of Kiptagon at the main crossing point between Jordan and Syria. So trafficking of drugs is also going on. And for a normal reason, because the new Syrian government is doing what they can, but they cannot really control this long border with Jordan. They do not have the trained military, they don't have the trained security forces, they don't have the resources, the technology, they lack all of that. Despite that, the movement from Syria to Jordan have increased in 600%, whether it's in personnel or in trade. But the return of refugees is very, very slow. So far, only 166,000 Syrians have returned voluntarily to their own country. At the beginning, at the collapse of the Assad regime in December, there was, like kind of many people going back to their country, hoping that things will get better soon in all sectors. But frustration get into their soil, and then things start degrading and become very, very, very slow. Now, regarding the priorities and challenges that we have, our first priority is our unemployment. We cannot continue provide this access to foreigners in Jordan for work, while unemployment in Jordan is rising rapidly. And we look to our partners in Europe and in the US and our friends across the world to open a pathway for Jordanians, skilled Jordanians. We have a very well-educated young in healthcare sector, in IT sector, in technology, agriculture technology sector, in green energy, in all of this. And we have also a very professional vocational training centers who are accredited in Europe, in America, where they can find a pathway for jobs in these countries. If we want to keep our country open for refugees and migrants. The international community committed to support the refugees in Jordan. For this purpose, we, alongside the international community, make a plan. This plan, how can we support this more than 1 million refugee in Jordan for the years coming? And there was amount of support allocated for this plan. This year, so far, and we are in October, we have received only 12% of what have been promised. I think one of our priorities is that our friends and allies across the world should be working with Jordan, shoulder to shoulder to host and to support these refugees. I think Jordan has made more than its fair share of this migration and refugee crisis, and others should be also taking their portion. The other thing is supporting the stability in Syria. I think that is very important for Jordan and very important for all of us to make sure that Syria is stable, is secure, people have the proper basic services, so we eliminate migration and refuge from Syria. And Syria in specific is very important for Jordan because most of our trade used to go to Europe through Syria, which has not been the case since 2011, in addition to drug smuggling and weapon smuggling and all the issues that we are facing over there. Last thing I would like to mention, we should be careful that things are possible for more refugees and more asylum seekers if the crises and disagreements in the region continue. The Israeli behavior in Gaza, the Israeli behavior in the West Bank, the Israeli behavior in Syria would make crises and problems in the region even far more than our countries collectively tolerate in terms of refugees, asylum seekers, and also problems to economic across the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. It was a very informative insight about Jordan. I would now like to turn to Sweden. Before asking you, Minister, a question, I would like, of course, to express our big gratitude. Sweden is the chair of our steering group of ICMPD during this year, and you have guided us with your team through this year, also finding a new Director General and, of course, solving this and that. Thanks a lot for this engagement. But now, coming to my question, you are now a little bit more than 1 year as a Minister for Migration from Sweden in office, and during this year a lot has been happening, and there are a lot of changes ongoing. I think Sweden has recently adopted the new strategy for Sweden's global development cooperation on migration returns and voluntary repatriation for the next 4 years. So maybe you could tell us a little bit, what is the shift in politics in Sweden and what are you doing at the moment? Please, Mr. Minister.
Absolutely, thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, it's a great pleasure to be here this morning and to meet with all of you. And I would like to start by echoing what Gerhard said. Thank you, Michael, for your time and for your service and for your splendid work. And also best of luck to Susanne. This is no easy job that you will have. There are no easy jobs in migration any longer, but it's an utterly important one for all of us. So best of luck with your ongoing job here. Just to give you a brief background of what we're doing in Sweden nowadays is the fact that during the refugee crisis, 10 years ago, Sweden received, and you need to keep in mind that Sweden is a medium-sized country with only 10 million people. So in only 2 years' time, we received 250,000 people. And of course, most people coming to Sweden or anywhere else in Europe, they're honest people. They just want to have a job, they want to have a better future, they want to have somewhere to stay, they need education, etc. But at the same time, it became quite soon very clear for us, even though Sweden had for many years had this policy of open borders, it became very clear to us that things were not working as they should have been working. I mean, that was very obvious. And that was also basically the reason for us to get elected 3 years ago, try to get a firmer grip on migration and to make things work. So what we are doing now is that we are implementing what we call in Sweden a paradigm shift. We are doing our best in order to reduce the asylum-related migration to Sweden. And I think so far so good. Last year we had the lowest number of asylum seekers since 1996. And if you broaden that for a second, if you talk about the asylum-related migration, also on family reunification, etc., we now have the lowest figure since 1985. Someone of you might ask what happened in 1985. The honest answer is that I don't know, but we don't have data going back further than 1985. So just to be sure, you always need to be very precise in politics. We are saying that we now have the lowest number of asylum-related migration since 1985. And that is, of course, important. It's important for us because it gives us the possibilities to handle all the other challenges that are related with migration, trying to find housing, schools, law and order, of course, an enormously important question in Sweden nowadays, and also the situation on the labor market. Like I said, most people, they just want to have a job, they need an income. At the same time, this is very complicated. In Sweden, a highly specialized economy, there are no easy jobs any longer. I mean, that was 30 or 40 years ago. So we are trying to reset the labor market here, trying to move more into the service sector, making sure that you don't have a situation where you can add many different benefits on top of each other, because then you end up in a situation, which has been Sweden's problem over the years, that work doesn't pay off. And in a society where you have large inflows of migrants and where work doesn't pay off, things will not go in the direction that you want to. At the same time, though, we do have this situation which I think is not really unique for Sweden. We also have labor shortages in many important sectors. So we are basically trying to do two very different things here at the same time. Reduce the asylum-related migration, but also put more focus on the top talents out there, and make sure that if you have a degree, if you're a researcher, or if you're an entrepreneur or an investor, very welcome to Europe and very welcome to Sweden. Having said that, though, what we have realized is that, you know, we cannot go on like we've always done it before. We need to try to find new ways going forward. And I think one of the examples here is what you mentioned, Michael, and that is our new global strategy on migration and on returns. You are probably aware of the fact that Sweden has for many years, in fact for decades, been a very generous donor when it comes to development cooperation. And I used to be Minister for both development cooperation and foreign trade. What we now are doing is the fact that we are setting some of these, focusing some of this money, the financial resources, into such a strategy, which means basically that nowadays when talking about forming partnerships with countries, we also have the financial resources. And I think this is important because otherwise, you know, there will be no innovative solutions that will really work if there is not a cooperation where everyone is a winner. It makes perfectly sense. So that could be development cooperation, but it could also be investments, that could be foreign trade. But I believe if any of these solutions, that could be the safe harbors or the return hubs or whatever, if any of these solutions are to be there in the long term, there needs to be pros for all partners in that cooperation. Having said that, though, like I said, I think you can accomplish a lot on the national level, but there are some things that can only be dealt with on the European level. And for me, firmly believing in the European Union, I think this is one of the most important reasons for having a union, trying to find common solutions to common problems. I don't see how Sweden or 27 different member countries could make up very separate plans on, for example, what you mentioned, Gerhard, forced returns to Afghanistan. I mean, that's because it's a very complicated issue. I congratulate you to being very forward-leaning. I think you have shown a great example here, but it would definitely be easier, I believe, if we could do that together as a union as a whole. That is also the reason why I have said that I want the Commission here to present a forward-leading plan on this. I think that would be an excellent job for them. Of course, it's easy for me to say that now when Magnus Brunner is not here, but but you understand what I mean. I think we need to find a joint solution to this. I want to finish also by underlying the fact that we are giving a lot of focus on, doing a lot of focus on the Commission, on the European Union. I think we need even more in the future of this Team Europe approach. So it's not only the European Union, there is also the ICMPD, which I think has a crucial role in this field in the future. Also the IOM, of course, and the UNHCR. So together, I think we have great opportunities to form these partnerships. And frankly speaking, I think that we need to do that. Because this is not only about making things work, it's also about preserving the public trust in the migration system. And I think that public trust is under attack, because if we don't succeed also in handling the very difficult topics out there, then we know for sure that there will be other players out there that will give very drastic, dramatic and false answers, very easy and simple answers to these very complicated questions. And that will not be what I would like to see in the Europe in the future. So preserving that public trust, I think, calls for this more long-term approach also to the very difficult questions that we are discussing here today. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you very much, Minister Forssell. I now would like to turn to our Egyptian colleague, Assistant Minister El Sharbini. I think we all know where Egypt is situated, in a very interesting neighborhood. So you feel every day how it is to have the Gaza Strip as your neighbor, with all the war ongoing, with the refugees that are turning within this Gaza Strip from the north to the south, now again to the north. So I would like to ask you, you have been also a country that is hosting a lot of refugees, especially from Sudan, as I know. And last year you decided to start with a new asylum system and also giving your citizens legal pathways opportunities for the future. So maybe you can also tell us about what is ongoing in Egypt, what is the assessment of the last year. Please, Assistant Minister.
Thank you so much. Actually, and allow me at the beginning to congratulate you on 10 years of the Vienna Migration Conference, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to be part of this important debate and dialogue. Over 10 years, we have seen migration and debate on migration evolved and influenced by many geopolitical situations and climate change, water scarcity, a lot of things that influences the debate and the phenomena itself. And if I will just draw the map, I will see the Mediterranean region in the center of many conflicts, Gaza, Syria, going south to Libya, even in Africa, from the Horn till the Sahel region. This is all influenced, has its influence from the south to the north, and has its influence on migration. And Egypt, in the middle of all of that, we are witnessing what's going on, and Egypt as a country of origin, transit, and destination, we see how this pressure is growing and growing. We have close to 10 million migrants, refugees, and people who are migrants who are in the status of refugees in Egypt. This has put a huge burden on Egyptian resources. We have no policy of camps. Those people, they are hosted by local community, but with the growing numbers, and if you will see the numbers growing, how much they grow during the last couple of years because of the situation in Sudan, this is creating a burden. And that's why we believe that in addressing this burden, we need to have a common approach. We need to have a holistic approach that addresses the root, the whole root of migration and the root causes itself. So that's why in Egypt we are trying to address the regional situation by trying to settle those conflicts in order to create a situation that can enable for return for those people to go back. And at the same time we cooperate with our partner in the Mediterranean and with the European Union in order to address ways to stabilize situation, to mitigate the effects. And in this regard, we believe that there is a common burden sharing, and that the international community has continued to play a role, a crucial role in supporting those countries who are in transit, those countries who are hosting refugees, in order to continue fulfilling this role, and in order to allow those countries to help in the return of those people to go back to their origin countries. And in Egypt, actually, regionally, we have a very proactive policy on the African continent. We were chairing the Khartoum process in 2024, and as well we have the debate with our partners in the Mediterranean. And allow me as well to present one of the experience that we had on the national level. We started in 2021 a debate to create a joint platform for migrants and refugees. This is a platform that addresses the situation of those migrants who are in the status of refugees, and the refugees and asylum seekers in Egypt. And with a growing number after the crisis in Sudan, and this platform started to work in September 2024 with the support of the European Union and funded by 12 million euros. This is still not a big number, but it's a start that we look forward to continue and to try to make it much more evolved to address other numbers of migrants. And this is implemented with the European Union and with 4 UN entities, including UNICEF, WHO, IOM, and UNHCR, definitely. And at the same time, we continue our call to stress about lawful migration and creating legal pathways for labor mobility and for those who can go in a legal way and according to the need of the recipient labor market. So this is in principle our policy and the main elements of our policy of migration. At the same time, we have the ceasefire in Gaza. We are working to stabilize the ceasefire and to have it secure. At the same time, we are trying to settle conflicts in the region in general, in Sudan. Sudan, it's a very important situation that will have its implication on the region if it will continue. And at the same time, we need to look for the crisis in Africa in general and to try to find a way to work together on this. And actually, I was interested to listen to the briefing of the commissioner about the new Mediterranean Pact, and it will be interesting to engage in a debate on this and to see how we can work together in order to make it implemented. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Assistant Minister. So many thanks to all the panelists for the first round, just giving us a little bit insight what is happening in the different countries. I think we should now move from the national level to international cooperation. And I think we have heard from the Commissioner there is an EU pact for the Mediterranean in place. So what is the expectation from the different member states of European Union as well as from the partner countries? What has to be done? I would like to ask all the panelists what issues and priorities they would like to see reflected in initiatives that are coming from European Commission or from some, of course, cooperation between different member states, and where do you see a closer international cooperation just to find this partnership for the future? I think this would be very much interesting for all of us. And I would like, of course, to turn to the right to begin with you, Minister.
Myself? Okay. Thank you. First of all, let's see that I think we have a good cooperation with the EU in Jordan. And this cooperation is going on for years. We really appreciate the EU support for Jordan in the crises that Jordan have to deal with the ramifications of these crises. But again, the equation is clear. Any individual will need security, will need job opportunity, and will need basic services. If he is not finding these 3 things in his country, he will seek to find these any place in the world. That should be clear for all of us. So what can we do together to make sure that those things are available, not necessarily on the same level like in Europe, but at least something for someone to be convinced to stay where he is? First of all, political engagement. I think EU should be more in political engagement in the region. Syria, for example, Syria faces a critical problems regarding the unity of the country. And when I say EU political engagement, it's not because if it's the EU. It is because what the EU have and the tools that he can use. He can, as my colleagues here, he can use trade agreements, he can use investments, he can use his political influence to solve problems in for example, northeast Syria and in Suwaida. Because the first step for Syria to be stabilized is to be united. That's one thing. The other thing is training. You know, border management need cooperation in sharing information, need cooperation in training, need cooperation in technical assistance. So I think we need more cooperation in terms of border management. When it comes to my region and my country, I think the borders with Syria need to have more attention and more cooperation between us and the EU. The only crossing point between Jordan and Syria is need to be looked after technical-wise. We have a plan to do a kind of a new refurbishment of this border crossing. And we would like to see the EU participating in this. I was just mentioning to my friend, Minister Karner, just now that the Syrians are more look for us to train their police force. And security is the first one of the elements that I have just mentioned. If security is there, this is the first step. They are open. They send us exactly what they need. We have the training centers in Jordan. We have the instructors in Jordan. We have all what is needed for things. So we need to have a cooperation in this with the EU. One more thing that I have mentioned before and I have to mention again is to continue to support the hosting nations who host those millions of refugees. To be able to provide them with education, healthcare, water, access to labor market, all these need to be assured once again. 12% of what have been promised, I think it's a very low number. And that will be reflected in the refugees, which will, at the end of the day, lead to those refugees looking for other countries to travel to. Again, Syria is very important. Syria is an opportunity, I think. If we miss this opportunity, we will witness a new wave of asylum seekers and migrants, whether in Jordan or the rest of the world. I think we are all very slow to come forward and help the Syrians rebuild their country. And in this regard also, I would like to say that Jordan can be a reliable partner in the reconstruction of Syria. We have an industrial and development zone just close to the Syrian border, just 30 minutes from the Syrian borders. All the infrastructure are there. You have pool of workers that you can choose in. Any investments in that area will lead to more jobs for Jordanians, more jobs for Syrians, and more and better infrastructure and basic services in Syria, which at the end of the day lead to Syrians think about going back to their country. I think the return is very slow, and there's an opportunity for us all to work together to make this better. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Minister Forssell, what would you expect from this international cooperation?
Well, we have high ambitions for this, and I think this really underlines what I was saying before about the importance of having more of international cooperation in order to handle all these very global challenges and also problems that we're seeing. So from a Swedish perspective, we have identified the Mediterranean routes as well as the Western Balkan routes as top priority for us. So we need to be there, of course, in order to handle these challenges. This is nothing that we can do from Brussels alone or from Stockholm or elsewhere. We need to be there on the ground. So we are part of the Rome process also, for example. We joined it last year, and also the Khartoum process. And we very much hope for having even stronger European partnerships together with very important players like both Egypt and Jordan, crucial in order to handle all of these challenges that we're seeing right now, especially Syria, of course. And the situation in Syria is something that we are discussing, I think, in every meeting that we're having nowadays, how to handle this and how to foster these partnerships. Because obviously, we do have the question about returns that we are focusing on, but it's also broader than that. Of course, we do have, I mean, we have a situation on the ground that needs to be handled with, and that could be by using development cooperation, by foreign trade, by investment. And of course, we also need to handle those perspectives, not only the questions around forced returns. That's an important part of it, but still only a minor part of all the problems that we're seeing there on the ground. I would also like to mention something else, and that is, if you look at the Mediterranean Partnership, is also about many other important areas that are crucial in this world. Creating jobs, for example, lowering the unemployment rates, finding new partnerships that could be within the tech sector or the green transition, also common challenges. So even though I personally, of course, working with migration all day, I mean, that we have our focus on this, is also more than that. And frankly speaking, in today's world also where everything is interconnected, you know, you don't have the green transition there and migration there and the unemployment there, everything is kind of mixed together. And different challenges in one area will lead to different consequences in many other areas too. So I think all of this really calls for doing even more in the future rather than less. But then let me also end by saying that, you know, the difficult thing in politics is not to say these things. You know, we have been saying them for some time. It's actually about implementing it, and it's also about reaching agreements that might not be perfect for anyone, but still, I think one needs to ask yourself the question, what is really the alternative? And are we better off or worse off without having these agreements, even though they might not be excellent in every aspect? And I think perhaps that is a perspective that should be more common, especially within the European Union, to move forward with the things that are perhaps 80 or 90% perfect rather than 100%, because then we will probably have a situation where we might have to wait for many, many years in order to have those perfect agreements, if there are any. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May I turn to the left side? Assistant Minister, what do you expect also from European side?
Actually, we have a good cooperation with the European Union and its member states on migration, and we look forward to upgrade this cooperation and to have it much more increased. That's why the pact will provide us with an opportunity. But this opportunity has to be tailored according to the needs on both sides and has to be discussed in detail. And we believe that there is a need to support those countries who are hosting big numbers of refugees in order to support their capabilities, to allow them to have additional resources that can help them in addressing the burden of people who are there, refugees and migrants. And as well, we believe that international cooperation has to be not only in the Mediterranean, but has to be globally addressed. And that's why we are looking forward for discussion on the pact. And the return will never be implemented without addressing the root causes. So you need to go and to find the economic tools that can address root causes in order to allow for a situation conducive for those people to return. And this is actually what we are looking for, because as in the EU, the member states looks for return, us as a destination, we look as well for return for big numbers that we have. So there is a need to address the root causes and to go to try ways to have a sustainable peace and to have an economic situation that is conducive and attractive for those people to return back. If I will just mention Syria as a case, actually the return is very minimal. We have numbers of Syrians. We have close to 500,000 Syrians in Egypt, and the return is very minimal because the situation is still fragile. All of us, we are trying to contribute to sustainable peace in Syria, but we need to continue and to work and to have a political perspective and an economic and social one as well. So, and for the European Union, it's a big partner of Egypt, and we believe in partnership. And tomorrow we will have the first European Union Egyptian summit, and we are looking forward to foster the dialogue on migration in the coming period.
Thank you very much, Assistant Minister. Minister Karner, may I ask your point of view?
At first, it's important for me to underline again, as I already mentioned before, for Jordan, but also true for Egypt. Both countries have shown remarkable leadership in hosting millions of refugees. And with this, both countries, Egypt and Jordan, also help to improve the security situation in Europe, in our countries, and also in the region. And thank you for this, again, to Jordan and Egypt. Security in general is the basis for economic development and welfare. Therefore, we need to continue protecting our borders and cooperating in fighting smugglers and other forms of organized crime, as well as terrorism. This is why Austria supports many international initiatives. For example, we contributed an ICMPD project in Tunisia, you remember, where border guards are trained. It was a project between ICMPD, Austria and Denmark. Our anti-smuggling experts are also closely cooperating with colleagues from Morocco and, for example, Libya. And let me one more time come back to Syria, as you mentioned. Mazin, the conflict may no longer dominate headlines, but Syria needs lasting stability, as you mentioned. And I talked with the Syrian minister in April, and he said to me, we need support, for example, in build up a police, to train the police. And that's what we can do and what we have to do to get in closer contact with the Syrian government. The primary goal is creating perspectives for the Syrian population and also Syrian refugees to return to their home country, because as we see in Satari, in this big camp in Jordan, refugees from Syria decide now where they are going. Are they going back to their home country, or are they going to Europe? They will not stay for every time in refugee camps. And this needs broad support and a whole of government approach. And to finish, I would like to underline that our future cooperation needs to be very operational and flexible. I think that's all very important for us. And to understand our needs, we have to have very close dialogue as we do it today. This is why formats like the Vienna Migration Conference for the 10th time are so important. And congratulations to all of you, especially to you. Lieber Michael, danke für deinen großartigen Einsatz für ICMPD. Ich bedanke mich sehr bei dir und wir werden bei späterer Gelegenheit haben, das ordentlich auch zu feiern. Es ist großartig, was du gearbeitet hast, und das habe ich auch bewusst jetzt auf Deutsch gesagt. Sorry for this, that I congratulate to him on German in our language. We're a long colleague for a long time, so thank you for this and your great work. Thank you very much, lieber Michael.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, ministers. I think this was a very stimulating exchange, and we have, of course, a list of what we have to do in the future. We have now time for some questions from the audience, and I would like to ask Justina just to look who would like to ask something. I think 3 questions, this is possible, and then we have a final round. Here we have the first one.
Thank you very much. I think my microphone is not working.
Please
come here. Raise your
second
hand.
Row.
Yeah. And state your name.
Yeah, thank you so much, Justina. I'm Roland Freudenstein from the Brussels Freedom Hub. I'll talk to you in the next panel also. But here's my question to the ministers from Egypt and Jordan. I think one of the root causes of irregular migration could be named bad governance. And I'm not specifying it, I'm not naming any particular countries, I'm just saying, this is my question to you, how best in the international cooperation between the European Union and its partners to work towards better governance? What are the best instruments? Thank you.
We can take 1, 2 more questions. Seems there are none. So over to you.
So please, would you like to start, Mr. Minister?
I'm not sure I understand well what does he mean by bad governance and at what level, because governance is, you have governance at a small group of police officers and they have governance at the state level. But let me say that, yes, I think there should be always cooperation. Governance of borders, for example, is very important. We have a close relationship with the EU in this regard. We exchange expertise, we exchange training, we have technical support from the EU. If we are talking about technical at the operational governance at the operational level. However, I think that that's only one element. And if you want to deal with the problem, really you need to deal with the root causes of this problem. The main reason for migration is the different level of living between the countries. The crisis that is happening, the conflicts that is happening. Why there is no migration from Europe to the Middle East? Because there is no conflicts. When one conflict happened in Europe between Ukraine and Russia, many refugees have come to Europe. Was there a lack of governance in Ukraine at that time or Russia? It's not the case. The case is there is a new situation where people lack security, where people lack basic services, where they need to move to another country. I think that's the main reason. Governance is something very important at all levels you should look at, but I think it's more than governance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Assistant Minister, would you like?
Well,
also?
actually, I have the same answer. It's similar. It's not governance that's source, and it's much more forced displacement. It's caused by conflicts or by economic situations that push people to move. So that's why I think we need to stress on two things. One is addressing conflicts and try to solve them. And second thing, a developmental agenda that addresses the need, the social and economic needs of society in order to enable those society to have better situation, better solutions, and to avoid people to move looking for better opportunities. So it's not just the migration governance, but it's much more the holistic developmental and security approach of countries of origin.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And apparently there is one more question in the back.
Okay, thank you. Raphael Bossong, German Institute for International and Security Affairs. I welcome that there's this debate about this new pact of migration for the Mediterranean, which is, in my first reading, interesting as it only talks about migration at the end and a lot of other issues at the beginning. And we've heard also a lot of different ideas about comprehensive partnerships. We all know the discourse, but just maybe fishing a little bit to the European partners. I mean, how do you really see the prioritization and the ability to mobilize the resources? So obviously we're in a time where budgets are constrained, and yes, there is a lot of interest in pilots, in more security measures, and they have their place. But on the other hand, we've heard really the structural needs for like long-term perspectives for a lot of people who are displaced in the region. And where do you see the potential to really mobilize that, given that also globally the humanitarian system is under severe stress? So maybe you have a few comments on that. Thank you.
Thank you. So this was especially turned to you, Minister Forssell, and you, Minister Karner. Please, Minister Forssell.
Well, I think that you are obviously correct on the fact that the system is under some financial stress today. That is, of course, a fact. But perhaps I have a slightly different opinion on the consequences of migration, because I would say that as long as, when talking about migration into the development cooperation and also about forming these kinds of partnerships that could be foreign trade and investments, etc., so far I haven't really seen any financial limits to what we are discussing. I would say that the main problem today is rather how to implement this and where to find these projects. That is the main constraint for me, being a minister and in charge of these, at least from a national level, these kinds of financial resources. The problem that I'm having is not a lack of money, really. It's a lack of projects, it's a lack of long-term cooperations, frankly speaking. So as long as what we are talking about are projects or cooperations around migration and on returns and trying to find these long-term partnerships. I personally don't believe that the financial resources would be the limit here. It's more about how to implement that is in a way with full accordance with international law and conventions, and how to have these long-term partnerships where also the partnering countries believe that there is something for them into all of this. That is my main concerns rather than the financial resources today. If we find the projects and the corporations, then we will also find the financial resources. I'm very sure of that.
Maybe
Thank you very much, Minister.
I can underline this because I'm almost 4 years part of the European Council for the Minister of Interior, and we very rare discussed about financial resources. We primarily discussed things about the legal framework, what we have to change. And this example I mentioned before, this project in Tunisia, we do it again. We did it together with ICMPD and Denmark. It was not a lot of financial resources. It was hard work and it was great work. It was a lot of support to train policemen from Tunisia, for example. So that's what we have to do, I think. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So.
Thank you very much. No. So one question, but please be brief.
Thank you very much. I have a question on good governance. And I think this has 3 layers. When we look at the domestic level, we are pretty convinced that we're doing an excellent job, but we still have challenges in the field of migration. When we look at the European level, we have a good governance approaching the pact, the implementation, and new Schengen governance. So we have good structures in place, but still we are not where we want to be. So I think the 3rd layer that we now need to look at is international governance. And so my question in particular to the honorable ministers, both of Jordan and Egypt, but also of course the European ministers, is how do you envision a future international governance of joint migration management that is to the benefit of both sides, European and partner countries all around the world? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, thank you very much. I think we are using this for a last round for the ministers and then conclude the discussion. May I ask you to start, please?
Yes, we have the Global Compact that was established and created a venue for debate. And we need to look for the compact and to see how it could be evolved based on new realities and new development in the migration field. So I think this could be a venue, and we will have a review coming in May for the compact, and maybe this will provide us with a venue in order to address the international governance of migration.
Thank you very much. Minister Karner?
Yeah, I think at first we had to make step forwards in our own countries. Then we had the next really big step. This is the Asylum and Migration Pact all over Europe. As I mentioned before, the last meters will really be really hard. You know the discussion we have on some topics in the pact. But I think we're doing today this what you mentioned, that we discussed together what are bilaterals, what are unilaterals, multilateral ways to make a step forward in migration, fighting illegal migration, and have a way to legal migration, like you mentioned. So I think it's evolving on this way.
Thank you very much. Minister?
Same. I think it will not work if every country has its own plan. I think it's all should be integrated, whether it's a country level, regional level, or global level. I think there should be a one understanding of what is needed to be done, and put the plans to implement these ideas or thoughts or individual plans into one big plan that can be materialized and worked on the ground.
Thank you very much. The last word has our chair of the steering group. Yeah. Please, Minister.
Thank you. Now I will give my full speech. 45 minutes. No, but I want to end by saying that, I mean, we are discussing extremely difficult questions here today. This is complicated stuff and so many challenges and problems. But I'm an optimist because I believe that we would have been better off if we had all these solutions 10 or 15 years ago, obviously, these kinds of partnerships, etc. But I can only tell you that I believe that there is a great shift in the migration policy and in the discussions that we are having, only if you compare where we are today and only a year ago and 2 and 3 years ago. And I believe that there will eventually be the decisions in place that needs to be taken. I'm an optimist. I believe that the European Union will manage to get its things together, because the alternative is far worse. And I also believe, when listening to you, that you're also interested in having these kinds of partnerships between equals, because that is how it should be run. And if we accomplish that, I believe that hopefully, I'm an optimist, hopefully this will be in place rather sooner rather than later, because frankly speaking, there is no alternative to it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to an end to this panel discussion. I think what we can take from here, in the 4 countries that are represented here, you have very different challenges, but there is no doubt there is a need for cooperation. There is a need for European engagement. There is a need for this partnership in the future. And with that, I would like to thank all the panelists for all what you have told us. I think it was an interesting hour. Thank you, and giving them a big applause for everything they have done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.